What is up, guys? Drew Martin here talking SEC football week number 4. So hopefully keep the good times rolling. Last week came a little bit down, back down to earth, just 4-5 overall. But for the video, 12-6 this season and 2-0 in best bets. So hopefully continue that. Got a best bet here for this one. So talking every single SEC matchup for this week's slate starting Saturday, September 25th. We'll go in order of kickoff here. 12 noon Eastern, the first game up on SEC Network. We get Georgia and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt catching 35.5. The Bulldogs having to win by more than 5 touchdowns, total of 53 in Nashville. There will be a lot of Georgia fans there, no doubt about it. But the thing is, with this game, which Georgia has won the last 3 meetings, 116-33. They lost the first year Kirby Smart was the head coach to Vanderbilt, and he pretty much has since just ran it up on them. And since then, actually, Derek Mason was shown the door, and they have a new head coach at Vanderbilt. That might have something to do with it. But I'm taking Vanderbilt here more for looking at Georgia's schedule. Their next 4 games, the most important 4 games, of a stretch of their regular season of the year. They got Arkansas, Auburn, and the oldest rivalry in the Deep South. We get Kentucky, sleeper Kentucky there, and then the largest outdoor cocktail party. They're playing Florida. That's their next 4 games. So I don't see a whole lot of reason for Georgia to run it up here on Vanderbilt, which is in a current 1-12 run their last 13 games. It's ugly there for the Vanderbilt program, but a little hold your nose special here for Vanderbilt to stay within 35.5 points. So come on, Vandy, stay within 5 touchdowns and cash this ticket. First game up. We also got 12 noon Eastern on ESPN, LSU and Mississippi State. 56.5 being the total. LSU minus 2-point road favorites in Starkville. This LSU team, they had the hurricane, the tough road trip out to UCLA. They didn't look good. But since then, they've played a lot better football. And Mississippi State, last year in this game, they set the SEC passing record. KJ Costello threw for over 600 yards. And Mike Leach's offense, it's still that Mike Leach offense. But the thing is, Mike Leach isn't all that good of a coach to be betting on. And this season with Mississippi State, they did beat North Carolina State, but they only beat Louisiana Tech by 1 point and also lost to Memphis in a close one. I don't know. I think LSU just top to bottom roster construction, the more talented team. And at the -2, I think it's buy low here. Bayou Bengals for me. So LSU -2. Next game up, 3:12 noon Eastern kicks here. We're breaking down 8 games. This is the last 12 noon Eastern one on ESPN2. Missouri versus Boston College. Mizzou minus 1.5 point road favorites, 59 being the total. This is a Missouri program. If you watch the video the last 2 weeks, it's not a program I'm looking to bet on. Sure enough, they're 0-3 against the spread this season, actually on an 0-6 run against the number. Their head coach, Eli Drinkowitz, I almost think he's a little bit in over his head here. He had that 1 year being the head coach of App State, and then he gets an SEC job. I think it was too fast of a climb for him. Their defense is not good at all, letting up over 260 rush yards a game. And BC, yes, their quarterback that likely will be playing in the NFL at some point, he's out, but their backup's pretty good. He threw for over 500 yards in one of his starts last season. It's kind of a weird trip for an SEC team to head up to Massachusetts here. I'm going to take the home dog, Boston College, plus 1.5 here, and kind of a tricky handicap overall. But I think Boston College keeps this ATS losing streak for Missouri alive. Take the Eagles plus 1.5. Got 3:30 kick. I guess the game in the SEC here on CBS. Texas A&M and Arkansas. Texas A&M minus 5.5 point favorites. 47 being the total. Neutral site game. This isn't in Fayetteville. It's an AT&T Stadium there. Arlington or Dallas, I believe. Look, Arkansas, the last 3 times in this series they've covered, but Texas A&M has won 9 straight since joining the SEC and playing Arkansas. Texas A&M has won every time. But Texas A&M, quarterback production, they're not really getting it. They haven't showed well in multiple games this season. That Kent State game was competitive for a while. Against Colorado, they didn't look good at all. Lucky to get out of Boulder with a win, or Denver with a win there. And Arkansas, real sleeper. I like them this season. Well coached. Pittman at the head coaching. and Bryles there at the OC. I think Arkansas is a bet-on team all the way. Plus 5.5 with the Razorbacks. Give me that. I think that maybe sprinkle a little bit here on the money line for Arkansas to win outright. I like the Razorbacks in that one. We got 4 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. Heading to the Plains here. Georgia State Panthers and Auburn Tigers. So Georgia State taking about the hour. If you're driving fast, hour and a half. If you're not, down 85 here to Auburn, Alabama. And 57 being the total. Auburn minus 27-point home favorites. Georgia State side of things real quick. They beat Charlotte last week, the 49ers. And their quarterback, Cornelius Brown, he's pretty good. Tall kid, athletic, can throw the ball. I think he actually got a scholarship offer to Auburn, but chose to be the quarterback at Georgia State. Just to give you a little background there of, I think they'll be able to move the ball a little bit. But Auburn, last week in that game against Penn State, in the whiteout up there, great atmosphere, I actually thought Auburn looked really good. I really did. They were surprising, and the ball didn't really bounce their way. A couple calls went against them, and Kurt Herbstreit and Chris Fowler, I thought, led the viewing public a little astray there, talking about the refs. But in Penn State being up against it, I actually think some of the big plays went against Auburn, and it shows in the rushing yards. Auburn had 182 to 84 rush yard advantage over Penn State, outrushing them by over 100 yards. In it till the end, didn't go their way, but still, I marked down as Auburn for the next couple weeks. I'm looking to bet on them, not fade them. So minus 27, always tough to lay that big of a number, but they have run it up when they got the opportunity to do so in this new administration under Brian Harsin. So maybe look for them to do it again here against a Sun Belt opponent. Give me War Eagle minus 27 at home. So got 3 games left, 3 night games here. Tennessee and Florida, 7 p.m. on ESPN. The Florida Gators minus 18.5-point home favorites, 63 being the total in the Swamp. This used to be a pretty big rivalry. Not so sure it is anymore, but talking about the Tennessee side of things, kind of down here. Not a big fan of their head coach coming up from UCF. And, I thought he kind of guided UCF and that program down a little bit from where Scott Frost left it. I guess you could say their defensive front looks good so far this season, but it's up against kind of weak competition. The Gators, last week showed as well in a loss as any team really can in college football, outgaining Alabama, the number 1 team in the country, but they did drop that game. Overall, at home in the Swamp, Dan Mullen, I think they run it up a little bit, and especially on the ground, put up some points here. Lean towards the under, but for record-keeping purposes, be on the Florida Gators, minus 18.5 in the first night game here. Also 7 p.m. on ESPN2, Kentucky and South Carolina. Actually, that's the best bet, so got one more game. Let me hit this one first, and then I'll come back to the best bet. We got on SEC Network at 7:30 Eastern, Southern Miss and Alabama, 58.5 being the total. Alabama 45.5-point home favorites in Tuscaloosa. Look, Alabama, that close game against Florida, I would think defensively they come out to play really strong under Nick Saban. And Southern Miss, look, they're 0-2 against FBS competition. They lost to Troy 21-9, and they lost to South Alabama, USA, that is, 31-7. So now they're playing Alabama. This is going to get ugly. The only thing I could really say about him is the running back, Frank Gore Jr. I think he's going to have a long day, though, going up against Alabama's defensive front. Minus 45.5 is something I don't like to do. And also, Nick Saban, he really doesn't run it up against, lesser opponents like this. So I don't want to lay that big of a number. Instead, I'll take under 58.5 here. Southern Miss and Alabama. I think it stays under, 60 points. So feel pretty good about that one. And just, I doubt Southern Miss scores any points at all. So could take their team total under as well. But I know a lot of people don't have access to bet that. So we'll take the full game, 58.5 under in Southern Miss, Alabama. Now for the best bet, guys, and we'll recap it at the end. 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2, Kentucky and South Carolina. Kentucky minus 5-point road favorites, 48 the total in Columbia. This one on ESPN2. Look, Mark Stoops, the second longest tenured head coach in the SEC. You don't get to do that unless you're doing something right here. Kentucky's won 7 of the last 8 against the spread against South Carolina. So they've kind of had their number in the betting markets. Their quarterback, Will Levis, 800 yards passing already this season. This offense is pretty good, a lot better passing than they have been in the past. And Kentucky, top to bottom, roster construction, I think the much more talented team. They've recruited a lot better. South Carolina, a new head coach. Look, they're 3-0 against the spread. It's something I like to look at. But when you look at actually who they've beaten, East Carolina, this is a different type of team they're going to have to face this weekend than ECU. They beat an FCS squad, and then they backdoored Georgia. So they lost the game 40-13, even though it shows they covered the spread. I don't know, guys. Just too low of a price tag on Kentucky. The more talented roster, the better passing team, the better coach team. Not too tough of a trip here. I'm taking the Kentucky Wildcats -5 for the best bet on the show. So that does it for the 8 SEC games. Recap them real quick, guys. Vandy +35.5 for the Hold Your Nose special against Georgia. LSU -2 against Mississippi State. Boston College, the home dog there against Missouri, +1.5. Arkansas +5.5 against Texas A&M in the house that Jerry built. We get the Auburn Tigers -27 against Georgia State in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Florida -18.5 against Tennessee. Kentucky -5 versus South Carolina. And Southern Miss, Alabama under 58.5. So that does it for the SEC video, guys. The 8 games hopefully continue the run. 12-6 overall this season and 2-0 in best bets. And again, guys, the best bet is Kentucky -5 over South Carolina. So I'm Drew Martin on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets, YouTube as well at Drew Martin Bets, and also on Facebook as well. So feel free to comment below if you're liking the content. Please let me know. Also, if you could, please smash that like button as well, guys. So that does it for the SEC video. Best of luck this weekend, guys. Be back